Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. I never planned on getting involved in something so complicated. My life had been relatively straightforward: work, gym, and a few social outings here and there. But when I met James, everything changed. He was everything I wasn't. Charming, powerful, confident, and older, much older. James was a successful entrepreneur, and he was used to getting whatever he wanted. It didn't take long for him to offer me a deal I couldn't refuse. He became my sugar daddy, and in the beginning, it felt like the perfect arrangement. James and I met through a mutual friend at a party. I had just finished college, struggling to find a steady job, and his offer seemed like a golden ticket. At first, he promised nothing more than an extravagant lifestyle in exchange for some company. No emotions, no strings attached, just a business transaction, or so he led me to believe. The first time he took me to dinner, I was floored by the lavish restaurant, the designer clothes, and the lifestyle that felt like something out of a movie. It wasn't long before I found myself falling for him, not just for the luxurious gifts, but for the attention and validation I had never received from anyone else. James made me feel special, desired, and important. He was married, but we kept it low-key. I was fine with that. He assured me that his marriage was nothing but a formality. His wife, Miranda, was busy with her own life, he claimed. Their relationship was a mere shell of what it once was, and that was none of my business. I told myself that I wasn't doing anything wrong. After all, he was the one who made the choice to have an arrangement like this. I was just taking advantage of the opportunity he presented to me. The first few months were perfect. Every weekend was a new adventure: trips to Paris, shopping sprees, private yacht parties. He treated me like a queen, and I reveled in it. Miranda, however, was a shadow in our relationship, a name I rarely even thought of. I was the secret. James's late nights at the office, his vague excuses about business trips, all seemed plausible, and I was content to play the role of the other woman, enjoying the perks of my sugar daddy without asking questions. As time passed, things began to unravel. I started to notice small things: strange phone calls, texts with no names, and a growing sense of unease whenever we spent time together. James began to pull away, his promises of lavish weekends and romantic getaways becoming fewer. Our time together felt rushed, like he was constantly looking over his shoulder. He seemed preoccupied with something, and for the first time, I started wondering if it was more than just business. There were moments when I would ask him what was going on, and he'd dismiss my concerns with a quick kiss on the forehead and a promise that everything would be fine. But then, one fateful evening, everything came crashing down. It was a Wednesday, and I had planned a surprise dinner for James at a restaurant he loved. I had bought a new dress, styled my hair, and was ready to spend a romantic evening with him. But when I arrived at the restaurant, he wasn't there. I called him several times, but he didn't answer. A cold sense of dread crept up my spine. I felt something wasn't right. After waiting for an hour, I decided to leave, frustrated and confused. As I stepped outside, I saw him across the street, walking toward a car with a woman I didn't recognize. She was laughing, and he was holding her hand with an intimacy that made my heart sink. I stood frozen for a moment, watching them drive away together, unable to process what I had just seen. The world seemed to spin around me. I was no longer the center of his attention. Someone else was. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Over the next few days, I did some digging, trying to get answers. I searched through his social media, his emails, and even his phone, which he had carelessly left unlocked one night when he went to the bathroom. The discovery was worse than I could have ever imagined. James wasn't just seeing other women on the side, he was still very much married to Miranda. In fact, he had never even told me that their marriage was far from over. They had been going through a rough patch, yes, but he was still living with her, playing the role of the loving husband in public while juggling his affairs behind closed doors. The most shocking part? Miranda knew about me. She knew everything. And worse, she had been watching me for months. I was devastated. The woman I had been unknowingly competing with for James's attention wasn't just some random woman, she was his wife, the person I had been kept in the dark about all along. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and foolish. I had given him my heart, my time, and my body, all while he continued to deceive me and play me for a fool. A few days later, I received a text from James asking to meet. When we sat down at a coffee shop, I was trembling, unsure of what was coming next. He started speaking in his usual calm, confident tone, trying to maintain control of the situation. But I wasn't listening. I couldn't focus on his words because I was too consumed by the realization that I had been nothing more than a pawn in his game of manipulation. "Jenny, I know things have gotten complicated," he began, his voice dripping with charm. "But I need you to understand. Miranda and I are in a difficult place right now. We have our own issues to work through, but that doesn't mean I don't care about you. I never meant for things to get this out of hand." I wanted to scream at him, to throw my coffee in his face, but I didn't. Instead, I sat there numb, listening to him justify everything. The lies, the betrayal, it all spilled out of his mouth like nothing more than a series of unfortunate events. And then he dropped the bombshell. "Miranda knows about us, Jenny. She's known for a while now, but she doesn't care anymore. She's accepted that our marriage is not what it used to be." I felt the air leave my lungs. His wife had known about me all this time. She had been watching us, aware of every text, every dinner, every secret weekend, and yet she had chosen to stay. But why? Before I could ask, he continued. "Miranda and I had been talking, and we've come to an agreement. She wants to stay married, but she also wants to explore other options. She's fine with me being with you, but she insists on keeping up appearances. It's a strange arrangement, but she's okay with it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was telling me that his wife knew about us and was fine with it. Was I supposed to feel comforted by that? Was this some kind of sick, twisted arrangement where we all played our roles in his charade? My mind raced with questions, but I couldn't bring myself to ask any more. The realization that I was living in a world of secrets, of lies woven together, so intricately, left me speechless thought in the days that followed. I distanced myself from James. I couldn't keep living in this twisted, deceitful world. I had been played by both him and Miranda, trapped in a web of infidelity and manipulation. I realized I needed to take control of my life again, to stop being a part of their game. But the hardest part wasn't leaving James. It was knowing that the wife I had never considered was the one who knew everything all along. She had watched me, uncovered all of my secrets, and yet she was the one who walked away with the power dot in the end. It wasn't just my relationship with James that was destroyed, it was my sense of self. I learned that no matter how much you think you know someone, there are always secrets waiting to be uncovered. And sometimes those secrets are far darker than you could ever imagine. The days following that meeting with James were a blur. The shock of hearing Miranda's knowledge of everything, the power she seemed to hold over me, left me feeling like I had been knocked off balance. I had always thought of myself as someone who could handle any situation, someone who could see through the games that others played. But now I realized I was just another pawn in a game that was far beyond my comprehension. I stayed in my apartment, pacing around, my mind racing with all the unanswered questions. How could Miranda be okay with all this? How could she accept that her husband had been with me, a younger woman, all while still playing the role of a devoted husband? The thought of it made my stomach turn. I was supposed to be the one to receive his attention, his affection, but instead I had been an afterthought, a secret in the shadows of his life. I tried to reach out to James again, hoping for some clarity. Maybe I could fix things between us. Maybe he could explain himself and we could move forward in a way that felt right. I was still deeply hurt, but a part of me wanted to believe that what we had wasn't just a lie, that maybe there was something real underneath it all. But when I called him, the words that came out of his mouth shattered whatever hope I had left. "Jenny, I think it's best if we stop this. Miranda and I are trying to work things out. It's complicated. I need to focus on my marriage. I'm sorry, but this can't continue. I sat in silence after he hung up, the phone still pressed to my ear. The finality in his voice was clear. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't even sorry for the way he had treated me. He was just done. And I was left to pick up the pieces of a relationship I thought had real potential. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was humiliated. He had walked away, leaving me with nothing but my shattered dignity. In the following weeks, I tried to bury my feelings, to move on with my life. I kept myself busy at work, diving into projects to keep my mind off of everything. But the truth was I couldn't escape the pain. Every time I passed a restaurant we had gone to, every time I saw a post on social media from someone in his circle, my heart would twist in agony. Then, one day, a message popped up on my phone. It was from Miranda. I stared at it, unsure of what to do. After all, she had known about me all along. She had been watching me, tracking everything I did. But this message wasn't what I expected. Jenny, we need to talk. My heart skipped a beat. What could she possibly want to say to me? She was the wife, the one who had known all along, the one who had stayed in the marriage while I'd been kept in the shadows. I thought about ignoring her message, but something inside me told me that I needed closure. I needed to understand why this had all happened. I agreed to meet her at a cafe downtown. The moment I saw her, I was struck by the calmness in her demeanor. There was no anger and no bitterness in her eyes, just a cool, collected woman who seemed completely in control of the situation. She wasn't the woman I had imagined she would be, the devastated wife who had been betrayed. She was composed, powerful, and exuded an air of authority that made me uneasy. "Jenny?" she said, her voice smooth, almost rehearsed. "I know you've been through a lot, but I want you to understand something. I don't blame you for what happened between you and James. He's always been like this. This isn't new. This is just his nature, and you were just one of many." I blinked in surprise. "One of many?" "Yes," she continued, not breaking eye contact. "James and I have an arrangement. It's always been that way. I knew about all of his affairs long before you came into the picture. The truth is, I don't care. Our marriage is a business partnership. We have an image to maintain. We have a family to take care of. But I never expected him to get so emotionally attached to someone like you." I sat there stunned. She wasn't angry. She wasn't upset. She was just indifferent. It was as if I had been a nuisance in her life, but nothing more. She had known what was going on and didn't care, and now she was sitting across from me, explaining the rules of our marriage like it was a casual conversation. But why did he have to lie to me? I asked, feeling a mix of confusion and anger. Why didn't he just tell me the truth from the beginning? Why make me believe there was something real? Miranda's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "Because, Jenny, that's how he operates. He's a master of manipulation. He knows exactly what to say to get what he wants. And you, my dear, were part of that. You weren't meant to be his wife. You were meant to be a distraction, an escape. And that's what he gave. You. But he never intended to leave me. He never would." Her words cut deeper than any betrayal I had felt before. James had used me. I had been nothing more than a temporary amusement for him, a means to satisfy his desires. And now Miranda, his wife, wasn't even angry. She was calm, almost detached. She knew exactly who he was, and she had accepted it. She didn't even want him for love. She wanted him for his status, his money, his connections. "You may think you were special, Jenny," Miranda said, her tone softening just a little. "But you were just a phase. I'm not angry with you. I don't blame you. I just want you to understand what you were getting into. And now I'm giving you a choice. Walk away from this. Let it go. James isn't worth your heart. It'll never be worth anything to him." I stared at her, unable to speak. The words she had just said, the reality of the situation, were too much to process. I had never imagined that I would be sitting in front of the woman whose life I had disrupted, the woman who had known all along. But in that moment, I realized something. I had been the one fooled, the one who had fallen for the illusion of a perfect life, the fantasy that James had created. But Miranda? She wasn't the victim here. She had known everything. She had played her own game, and in the end, she had won. James, my lover, my sugar daddy, was nothing more than a puppet in her carefully crafted world. "Thank you for telling me this," I said, my voice steady, but my heart heavy with the weight of it all. I needed to hear it. Miranda stood up and smiled again, her expression unreadable. "I'm sure you did. But now you know the truth. The only question left is, what will you do with it?" I sat in the cafe long after Miranda had left, her words echoing in my mind. It wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my self-worth. I had been a part of a game that I didn't understand, but I was done. The affair was over, the lies had been exposed, and I was ready to walk away. The woman I had been was gone. Now I would find the strength to rebuild. It wasn't about the money or the lavish lifestyle. It was about finding myself again, without the lies, the manipulation, and the tangled web of deceit I had gotten lost in. And this time, I would do it for me. As I sat there, contemplating the shattered remnants of my past, I felt a strange sense. Liberation. Miranda's cold detachment had removed any lingering doubts about my decision. I was done with James, done with the lies, and finally free from the illusion of what had once seemed like a glamorous escape. I was ready to take control of my life again, to rebuild, to walk away from the chaos. But just as I was about to stand up and leave the cafe, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Curious, I opened it. "Jenny, I think you should know the truth about Miranda." My heart skipped a beat. My hand trembled as I tapped the message to open it. Who could it be now? Another one of Jane's lovers? Someone else who had been watching me from the shadows. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The message continued, and as I read, my breath caught in my throat. "Miranda isn't who she says she is. She's been playing you both. The truth is, she's not just James' wife. She's been with someone else, someone you know very well." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I reread them, my mind struggling to comprehend. Someone I knew? Who could it possibly be? Before I could make sense of it, the name popped up in the next line, as if to confirm the truth that my heart refused to accept. "Miranda's been involved with your best friend, Thomas." I gasped, a rush of cold terror flooding my veins. Thomas, my closest friend? The man who had known everything about my life, my relationship with James, and had even supported me through the hardest moments? How could this be possible? The realization came crashing down on me like a freight train. Miranda hadn't just been playing games with James. She had been manipulating all of us from the beginning, weaving a web of lies so intricate that even I had never seen it coming. And in that moment, I understood. The message wasn't from some random person. It was from Thomas himself. The betrayal went deeper than I could have ever imagined. I had never been the only one. Miranda and Thomas had been involved for years, playing both sides, working their own plans. And I'd been their pawn all along. I sat back, my mind spinning with disbelief. The man I had trusted, the one I thought I could confide in, had been part of this cruel charade. They had been plotting it all, every step of the way, right under my nose. The truth was so much darker than I had ever imagined. And now, as everything came crashing down around me, I had to wonder who was I really dealing with. As the realization settled in, a new message popped up from Thomas. "I'm sorry, Jenny. I never meant for it to go this far. But now you know, and there's no going back." I stared at the screen, heart racing, as the true meaning of that sentence hit me. This was a game that no one had control over, not me, not James, not even Thomas. And now I was left standing on the outside, looking in. The final twist wasn't just the affair, it was the complete loss of everything I had once trusted. Miranda, James, Thomas, They had all been playing me from the very start, and as I sat in the cafe, the final truth settled in. I had been the last to know. The last to realize that the only game I had ever been part of was one where I was the one who lost.